Oops. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Social Media Pulse Community Experts Insights panel on dark social. Dark social is a term that I think a lot of us have heard. We may not know exactly what it means. We may know what it means in a particular context, but maybe not how far it goes. And above all, we all want to know how we can leverage it better and how we can measure success. So I have a great panel of experts here with us today, and they're going to talk all about different elements of dark social. They come from an array of backgrounds and perspectives. So I think that we're going to get a really, really good rundown on dark social here. But before I go any further, if you are joining us on social media, thank you so much. We are thrilled to have you. We'd be even more thrilled to have you commenting along with us and watching this live within the Social Media Pulse community. So I've just put that link in the comments. It's also in the post, but just in case, you can always go to socialmediapulse.community and there'll be a little piece right there up at the top about this broadcast, and that's really the place to join the live conversation. All right, so let me bring on our guests in no particular order. First, I'm going to introduce Ms. Jessika Phillips of Now Marketing Group. Jessika, you have talked about dark social. I've seen you speak about dark social many times. What is so interesting about it to you, just as a quick intro?
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that 80% of all of the traffic and now growing that is visiting our website is considered to be dark. And it's not the dark web, guys. We are talking about dark social, not the dark web. But it's something we're all participating in. And I think it's fascinating because it's really causing brands and businesses to think a lot differently about how they're marketing and how they're showing up in general.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Jessika. And next up, I'm going to introduce Kelly Noble Mirabella of Stellar Media Marketing. So, Stellar Media Marketing, you also do chatbots. That has become a big focus for you. So, what is so interesting to you about dark social?
Well, I think that we are seeing a growing number of people discussing brands, discussing everything really in messaging apps, which is quite a bit of the dark social we're talking about today. You have billions of people on apps like WhatsApp and Messenger. And in the end, we need to come to them and we need to be more conversational, but we also need to use the tools that allow us to track and to tie our campaigns and our brands to the conversations that are being had inside of dark social.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. We'll hear more from you on that from you in a bit. Next, I'm going to bring on Azad Yakatally from Attentive Mobile. Hello, Azad. Tell us about why dark social is so interesting to you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Christine. I feel like dark social is kind of just the evolution of social media. When we first got into this industry, we learned that social media was more personalized, more humanized than traditional marketing, and dark social is just the evolution of that, more one-to-one communications. And it's been expanding, beyond social media into text messaging, that like what we do at Attentive.
Awesome. All right. And we'll hear all about SMS marketing from you shortly. And then last but very much not least, we have Christopher S. Penn of Trust Insights, which is a data analytics firm. And Chris, tell me your personal take on why dark social is so darn interesting.
Dark social, it's interesting because of what it is, right? Dark social is any communications platform where we, marketers, do not have visibility into what's being said, and we have no access to the data. So that means SMS, group chats, group texts, non-indexed places like the dark web, which is, as folks have said, a different topic. But most important today are private social media communities. So things like Slack, things like Discord, things like Telegram, things like the Social Media Pulse community, right? That is not public accessible and indexed by Google unless you're a member. So a dark social community is any place that, as marketers, we're not invited to.
Absolutely, but we're crashing the party anyway, because that's what marketers do. All right, so we're going to jump into the first question, and I tweaked this just a little bit, just so the panelists know, but don't worry, you can still answer it, which is, how do you define dark social, and what got you into it? How did this become a point of real interest for you? So Jessika Phillips,
Yes.
we're going to start with you. Come on down. So how do you define dark social? We just had a little bit of an overview of it, and what got you into it?
Yeah, like everyone has said, it's something that we do not have access to track as marketers, is the visits and where people are hanging out in those conversations. And as marketing, we're trying to elicit conversations. We're trying to build relationships at the end of the day and convince or hopefully convert people to want to work with our business or continue working with our business. And that's one of the things that really got me interested in dark social, is because, as Azad said, it's the evolution of social media. It is more one-to-one conversations that are happening. And me being all about relationship marketing and having brands kind of out-care and focus on out-caring their competition, I love this, because we may not be invited to the party at the jump when they're going into Discord or some of these channels, but hopefully we're able to focus on the true meaning of building relationships and having those one-to-one connections where we do get invited to those conversations, or those conversations that are being had that we're maybe not invited to, we at least know they're talking positively about our brand. Because the number one deciding factor on if a person chooses to work with one company or another is about the perceived experience that that company can provide. So people are having conversations about what it's like to work with one brand over another. And we want to ensure that those conversations are in a positive sentiment about our brands. And the only way to do that is to truly show up and care, and to focus on building those relationships and rapport that can grow in momentum over time as these channels continue to grow and the conversations continue to evolve, and even more dark social places. So.
That's true. And I mean, whether we're invited to them or not, those conversations are happening. And in a lot of cases, they're a lot more trustworthy than the one-to-many broadcasts would be. All right, so we're definitely going to dig into this more today. But in the meantime, I am going to move this question on to Kelly. Kelly Noble Mirabella, come on down. So how do you define dark social, and what got you so into it?
So I have been in digital marketing longer than I like to admit. And I can tell you that dark social has been around before social media. If you really think about it, it's basically the conversations, it's the things that happen that we can't really track, that we're not a part of. But if you think about it in terms of without the social, even with advertising and marketing going on, people are having conversations with each other face to face in the real world. And we can't track that. We don't know what's going on in those conversations. We're only hoping that our brand stays top of mind, that we have a good rapport with the people talking about us and sharing our stuff. So from that point of view, I think that the content that we put out, the value that we bring, the way we handle in our customer service, and how we handle conversations in the social space are all elements that are going to help us in the dark social of the world. Now, on a more micro level, I obviously have a specialty in chat marketing. I got into that about, 2017, 2016, where I just saw this emergence of popularity in messaging apps. And we had these great tools coming out like ManyChat that allow us to build out automations and conversations within these platforms, so we can kind of bring a lot of the conversation to the places where people are already having those conversations. So it's a platform like Messenger, WhatsApp, the DMs on pretty much any social channel. People are already there, they're already comfortable, so we need to be where those people are. And so that's kind of how I got into it.
Amen. And people are doing really incredible things with chat. I've seen you do incredible things with chat bots, and we can get more into that in just a little bit. All right, next up, we have Azad, and you come at it from a different perspective because you work in SMS. So I'd love to hear from you, first of all, how you define dark social. It's possible you don't even consider SMS to be dark social, but also how you got into it and sort of how you define that area of things.
Yeah, of course. So, I think dark social as a whole is, as Chris alluded to in the intro, is just marketing and conversations that are happening outside of the public eye, right? So one-to-one conversations and all that fun stuff. I got into it. My experience is mostly in social media. I've been in social media for over a decade, and I really got into it when Instagram started prioritizing stories, which ultimately led to conversations happening in DMs versus in the comment section. And that was my introduction to dark social, realizing that now if I'm creating content on social that leads to one-to-one conversation, that isn't like the best you can get for lead gen on social. And that's what really got me into it and really tweaked the way I approach social media as a whole. SMS isn't it is and isn't considered dark social. I mean, it is like by the criteria that we define it, it's conversations and marketing happening outside of the public eye. But the industry as a whole likes to classify SMS marketing as, SMS marketing. So I think it falls into dark social, but it's one to one, right? So is that really social media marketing, or is it more one on one marketing?
Yeah, and I think that there's more overlap than there perhaps would have been before. I think that at the beginning, SMS sort of wasn't considered as much of a social strategy. People who handle social wouldn't have also been in charge of SMS, and perhaps they shouldn't be. I don't know. We can talk to you about that. But yeah, it's interesting how those lines are kind of shifting. And we're going to talk to you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say at Attentive, we don't like to call it SMS marketing. We like to call it conversational commerce, and that's really what it is, right? It's having conversations with your consumers and your leads, and finding out what they like and speaking to them, not at them.
Yeah, and it seems that there's a lot of overlap with that and chatbots as well. I think Kelly would agree with that. All right, great. So next up on this one, we're going to talk to Chris Penn. Chris, how do you define dark social, and what got you so? I know that you're really fascinated by dark social. You've been digging in hard. You've been talking about it, certainly. So how do you define it, and what got you really into it?
So like we said, it's places marketers aren't invited. It's places that are out of the public eye. And there's several characteristics of most chat platforms, most conversation platforms. One is there's no algorithm, right? There's nothing intermediating the experience that you have talking to other people. When you're on public social media, yeah, you're competing with everything else that platform's trying to show you, algorithms, AI, and you can't have a conversation with people in a lot of cases in the public channels. You obviously can in people's DMs. But I first got into dark social in private social media communities with Slack, which is the popular B2B sort of workplace solution that's got to be what now, 8, 9, 10 years old. I think it's 8 years old. I think it was 2014. And then during the pandemic, during the first days of the pandemic, because the pandemic's still going on, I started reaching out to different groups on Discord, starting to get involved in Discord as I picked up some new hobbies during the pandemic. And that was when I really opened my eyes just how big this universe is, because Discord is much, much larger than almost any other dark social platform. Maybe a little later on, we'll talk about private social pumpkin spice lattes and squishmallows and how that plays into all this stuff. But these communities, some of these Discord servers, hundreds of thousands of people that are just having conversations out of the public eye, out of marketers' awareness, and yet to what Kelly and Jessika both talked about, they're talking about us. They're talking about our businesses, our brands, and either we're there or we're not.
That's so true. You're in it or you're not in it. And, who wouldn't want to be in it? We're marketers. That's what we do. All right. So next up, how we're going to find out from our panelists how they have harnessed the power of dark social as part of their overall strategy. And this time we are going to begin with Kelly, because I know, as you said, you've been in digital marketing for a long time. You got really into chatbots around 2017. And I know that you went hard into that particular arena with your baby got bot and all of that. So tell us about how dark social, how you've harnessed the power of dark social as part of your overall social strategy for yourself and for your clients.
So the beautiful thing about chat marketing and these automations that we can build out is that we can take people from public places into private places, and we can capture them. There's several ways we can capture them. We can capture email, we can capture their phone number, we can capture really anything we want, but we can also pixel them. We can segment them. We can do all the things marketers love to do, but in a really intimate setting. And chat marketing allows us to build that in as an automation. So once it's built, it really kind of does its own thing. And we've seen in my experience in a lot of the case studies that we've seen with ManyChat and with my own company, that the conversion rates are far higher, that lead generation is so much easier. And I think it really comes down to, again, going back to what I said before, people are already in this space of messaging and talking and using these platforms. That's their comfort zone. And we need to go to them in those spaces or bring them into those spaces that they're already familiar with, because there's a lot of fatigue around social that is public, right? And by public, I mean, your Facebook postings and your Twitters and, tweeting and all the things that are out there that are very easy to track and to generate, what we need in data analytics. But if we bring them into our fold, into the dark side, if you will, but in a comfortable environment, we make it interactive, then we are going to be able to harness such a more powerful thing. And as they say, with power comes responsibility. So of course, there's ways that we can do that responsibly. And there's a lot of rules and compliance, but I think that harnessing the power of chat marketing has been huge for me. It has been huge for my clients and the people who have adapted to it. And even it's funny because I'm really involved in chat marketing. I could do some fancy stuff, I know how to do a lot. But what I've found over the years is even companies who employ the simplest chat marketing strategies, whether it's just, have a comment grow tool, they come in, they give an email address, you give them some kind of lead magnet or a coupon, and that's it. And then you just send them over to an owned platform like email, that those actually outperform anything that's overly complicated. And at the end of the day, I think marketing that is simple and to the point and is well thought out and well constructed is going to win over complicated any day of the week, especially in dark social.
Absolutely. And you really can't get any simpler than literally being there in their inbox, except perhaps for literally being there on their phone. All right, Azad, you are up. And the thing is, you have an interesting perspective because yes, you're an expert in on some level in SMS marketing because you work for Attentive, but you yourself are a social media manager. Yeah. You're not necessarily texting people, you're on social. So I'd love to hear from you how you've harnessed the power of dark social of any sort as part of your strategy and how it's kind of changed up the way you do things.
Absolutely. So a challenge that I face at Attentive is that, we're a B2B SaaS company, right? So I'm marketing to other marketers and trying to get them to learn about our product and use our product for their companies. So on social media, the way I'm doing that specifically using dark social is, as I alluded to earlier, with Instagram stories. So in the past, and I see a lot of people still doing it, a lot of brands still doing it, using Instagram stories as almost as a digital billboard, right? You get your message out there and people tap through. I've shifted my strategy at Attentive with Instagram stories, and now I'm starting to be a lot more conversational. I'm asking questions. I'm using the quizzes and polls, just trying to open that conversation in the DMs where I can eventually hunker down and create a lead for one of our SDRs at Attentive. Another tactic that I've used in the past is community building. As I mentioned before, like this really feels just like the evolution of social media. And when we first started out on social media, we were just posting, and then it turned into community management and building online communities. And I think that is a key to really being successful with dark social, is building a community where your fans and customers can go to converse, ask questions, and that's where you get all your insights and your information, and you can jump in there and participate in the conversations, take the conversations offline to own channels, input data into your CRM, and then learn more about your customer base there as well.
It is beyond a perfect segue that you just specifically talked about community, because I know that that is the part that Chris Penn is most fascinated by when it comes to dark social channels, dark social communities, owned communities, private communities. So Chris, tell us how you have harnessed the power of dark social as part of your strategy, and or how you're seeing other people do it as well. Oops, I can't hear you. That's weird.
I said our our strategy has been to do a Slack community. We built a Slack community. I'm actually sharing my screen here, Christine, if you want to bring up the screen share portion. This is Analytics for Marketers. We started this in 2018 as a Slack group. People are welcome to join. There's a public invite link, but Google and Facebook and all the other ad tech companies can't see in here. And inside this community, we have now almost 3,000 members. People are asking questions all the time. People saying, hey, how does this work? Has anyone run into this problem with Google Analytics, and so on and so forth? And this community allows us to stay in touch with prospective customers, with actual customers, with people who might be customers, people who are just fans and things like that. And it is so impactful for our business because a lot of the times prospective customers are in this community, and guess what? It's super easy just to DM them in Slack and say, hey, did you look at that proposal we sent over last week, and so on and so forth. But also, because we have access to the community, because we're the administrators, we can extract just the raw data and run our own analytics on it and say, like, what are the topics people are talking about all the time? Is that aligned with what we see publicly? We use it as a focus group all the time, running polls and quizzes and asking people, what do you think about this? Vote on this. Are you using this, that, or the other thing? We've been talking a lot about the GPT text generation models this week, and the discussion threads have been, dozens of comments, people sharing their experiments and prompts. And it lets us keep our finger on the pulse of our customers in ways that public social media just can't do because there's just too much noise.
Absolutely. You don't really know what people care about unless you see what they're talking about amongst themselves, really. And if they're putting themselves in the situation to have those conversations. I love it. All right. So last but not least, we're going to talk to Jessika about this. So Jessika, you run a full service marketing agency. Mm-hmm. So and relationship marketing is your whole jam. So how have you harnessed the power of dark social as part of your overall strategy?
First of all, I just have to say I love listening to everybody on this panel, so smart, and I just amening to everything that they're saying. And I think what we're hearing is there's many ways of doing this, but one thing that we focus on with clients is to sense before you seize. I think it's so easy to hear about different channels and different ways that you can show up. It's like, oh, do we do Slack? Do we do Discord? Do we start doing this other thing and more and more and more and more? And it's not more when you do more and more and more. It's sensing before we seize. So we try to get clients to first focus on, okay, who is your ideal community? Who is your core, a culture of individuals that you're trying to connect with and truly build this relationship and rapport with? And first take a pause and sense of where people are hanging out, where there's opportunities to create a space, like if it is a Slack channel or a Discord channel or the Social Pulse community, if you're building your own community. But first sense and pause, listen, find out where there's needs and where you could add value and you're not just creating more of the noise. So we really help clients to kind of back up a little bit first, pause, and think through how can they capture attention, articulate their message, build relationships and exceptional experiences, which is our CARE acronym, before they just start adding to the noise. So that's really where we help them show up, because as Kelly said, with great power comes great responsibility, and we're not really trying to just do more and trying to take the easy way out, but truly trying to build those relationships and both with our internal community of our customers and that we're currently serving, and show up there so they love us more and are empowered more to serve us. I think Agora Pulse does a great job of this with just building the Social Pulse community and all the value offers that you offer there. But then also with your current team members too, because they can be your biggest evangelist in the channels that they're hanging out with and the people that they're hanging and communicating with. And then look beyond that on ways that we can co-create. So after we're sensing, then we go to the seizing on how can we co-create? Because now as we move into this Web3 world, which is all about, first we started with just read-only Web 1, then social media is Web 2, where it's read-write, but now it's read-write, co-create. Where can you create an experience where people can get more involved with the brand? They can give feedback. They can co-create with you in a sense. And that becomes the loyalty factor in the way that they have some ownership and some loyalty to the brand to want to talk about it and want to share it on more often. So that's how we leverage it, helping them sense, find out their plan to grow momentum and a flywheel effect, if you will, to their marketing, their sales strategy, and then help them move into this new Web3 on ways that they can co-create with their existing community.
I really love how you laid that out about the read and the read write and the Web3 about being about co-creation, because as a personal branding geek myself, I love the idea of your employees and the dark social conversations and private communities that they are a part of can really be a tremendous asset. And, that can be an active part of a strategy. And strategy is what we are talking about next. We're going to talk about how you approach your dark social strategy differently from more public one-to-many channels such as social media. So how do you approach them differently, but also how can you link them? So they're different, but they can help each other build. So it's a mouthful. It's a big question, but it's a really useful one. Azad, you are up. So how do you approach dark social channels differently strategically, but then also how can you link it to your overall marketing strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. An analogy I like to use is in marketing in general is that traditional marketing is like painting with a paint roller. Social media is painting with a paintbrush because you're just a lot more exact. To take that a step further, dark social and doing it properly is painting with like a fine point paintbrush. You are getting all the details. You're getting in the weeds. So your approach on dark social should be very much so in the weeds, right? So you're assuming that the people that you're interacting with via these dark social channels know a bit more about your product or your service, so you can kind of get into detail with everything you're talking about, as opposed to just general social media where you're a little bit more broad and you're focused more on brand awareness. The folks that you're talking to on a dark social channel know your product. They know about your brand, they know your voice, and now they want to be spoken to as such. And something that you should really utilize in partnership is a good CRM tool, depending on what you use. But this is where you're getting data about your customers. Yes, it's individualized, but if a concern or a comment in a community or that you get in a one-to-one conversation is probably shared by a lot of your customers. So this is where that data comes in handy. You can bring it back to your product team. These are the learnings that you take back to your team to improve your product, to your sales team to talk about, pain points for potential leads. So I think you just get so much more granular with dark social as opposed to traditional marketing campaigns and just old school social media. I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I love what you pointed out about how the people you're having those conversations with in dark social already know about your brand. It is not a discovery channel. It is a way to kind of deepen those relationships. And speaking of relationships, a next person we're going to have talking about this is Jessika Phillips. How do you approach, either for your own business or even for your clients, how do you approach dark social channels differently from other channels? But then also, how can you link them and connect them and help them, build each other up?
Yeah, I was just going to say ditto everything he just said, but no, really, I loved the paintbrush, the paint roller, and the fine point pen analogy, because that's so true. I think dark social channels, the thing to remember, whether you're creating it on your own home base, a website or a Slack channel or a Discord or wherever you're building it, the whole idea and how you approach that is creating a sense of belonging, right? Like the whole idea is creating a sense of community, belonging. It's where everybody's kind of sitting around the campfire making s'mores, so to speak. Literally, I've done this with others to create these moments, but it is truly creating a sense of belonging where people do have to know about your brand and be committed to it. So you're not just inviting it to everyone. It's creating this space to where others feel like they want a part of it because they already get an idea and a feeling of what it's like to have this experience with your brand. So approaching the strategy first, and what makes it different is that first, you really do truly, going back to the sensing before we seize thing, have to understand what your brand manifesto is, who you are at your core and what makes you unique and what kind of experience you're trying to offer, whether it is that s'mores around the campfire kind of thing, whether it's a learning type experience, like what should people feel about your brand? So you really do have to develop this brand personality and have it structurally sound and know what this North Star is of your brand. And everyone that's part of it can articulate then when they're in these conversations what it does mean to work with your brand, what your brand is all about. You know, for me, as we've said, it's like the relationship marketing aspect, and that's something that's at our core. So how we show up then to kind of connect the two is that you are showing who you are on the social media channels. Like you said, it's the paintbrush where people can kind of get a sense of your style, your art, your flair. And it helps then guide the right people, almost kind of filtering through the people that do truly want to be part of this community, that are truly part of your core momentum of turning our followers, you know, then into the true fans, the people that do want to advocate for you. It's the difference between, you know, working with clients to turning them into big advocates for you. It's the difference of creating this space where they feel empowered to almost represent you as the brand, right? But social is where you're going to be talking about it. Dark social and those private channels are where you're really getting active with it. It's your community turning them into collaborators with you and your team members into evangelists. So you look for these opportunities of how can we do these things and progress the relationship forward, and what is the different channel from using like a Facebook and used to be like Facebook groups to now building maybe something on your own home base or a private dark social channel where people do want to hang out with you and they're going to show up and be active.
I love that. Speaking of showing up and being active in a community, I'd like to remind everybody, we love it if you're joining us on social. We love that. But please do join the conversation on the Social Media Pulse community site. That's socialmediapulse.community. All right, next up, we're going to bring up Kelly. So Kelly, you've done all sorts of digital marketing. How should people approach dark social channels differently from the rest? But then also, how can they link them together in a way where they can build each other up?
Awesome question. So I'm going to give you a 3-part answer. Number 1 is make it useful. Number 2, nix the noise. And number 3, we're going to connect the dots. So first and foremost, make it useful. If, and in my sphere, we're talking chat marketing. So people in the DM, Messenger, WhatsApp. If you're going to invite people to come into a private conversation, which is exactly what you're doing if you're bringing them into Messenger, into WhatsApp, into direct messaging, we're actually not just inviting them into our messaging box. We're asking them to allow us into theirs. It has to be useful. So don't put stuff in there that doesn't belong. And if there's a better way to do it, don't just do it in the chatbot. We see this a lot in the chatbot building community is people are like, oh, shiny, pretty new thing. I'm going to make everything a chatbot. And they're trying to replace like full out e-commerce stores and landing pages that really are better serving the client than bringing them into Messenger. So make sure that you're using the tool properly and for the right reasons that are useful and helpful to the end user. The second one was nix the noise. So when it comes to the outside social world, the non-dark world, we can post more because there's filters out there, right? It's like Azad said, it's like I'm rolling the paintbrush around and I'm like, here, all my content. But when it comes to Messenger, this is sacred, right? So if we are sending multiple messages a day or a week, we're going to get burnout. We're going to get blocked. We're going to get, unsubscribed like that. We have to respect those spaces, whether it's Messenger or some kind of messaging app or SMS. I'm sure Azad would also agree with that. You don't want to over inundate. And so I see this a lot as an example of people who maybe have a webinar coming up and they want to send a reminder. So they'll send a reminder 3 days out, like very traditional email marketing, right? But in Messenger, 3 days out, and then the day before, and then like 3 times that day. Well, by the time we get to the most important notification, which is, hey, we are live right now, come to the webinar, people have already tuned out. And so we really have to make sure that we nix the noise. And finally, connecting the dots is the most important thing. Messenger, DMs in Instagram or any other platform, WhatsApp, this is not owned. You don't own it. Meta can knock you out right away, like they down for the count, and you're going to lose everything. So definitely connect the dots in terms of capturing people's emails for email marketing that you own that list, capturing their phone number. If you're doing SMS text marketing, you own that list. Or even, getting them to join a private community and, join your dark social. But we want to take them from these non-owned. It's really similar to the regular Facebook or Instagram or, the public side of social, except we have more power in these spaces to do that and just kind of very quickly take it over. As long as we're staying conversational, we're staying value. So those are the 3 things that I would say. But I have to give mad props to Azad because he set this all up for us perfectly with his analogy of dark social. So
I know, and that paint roller thing, that just
I know,
really,
that was
sticky.
so it.
I love that. And I love how you said that it's sacred. I mean, if we're in someone's DMs, if we're on their phone, we need to respect that they've welcomed us into that space. Marketers like to crash the party and get drunk and swing from a chandelier, and that's not
marketers cool. Ruin everything. Stop it. Stop ruining everything.
Well, hopefully those of us here can help prevent marketers from wrecking the place up. All right. So Chris, I would love to hear from your perspective how dark social strategy should differ from general social or other marketing strategies, but then also how it can link together to support each other.
So a couple things. One, marketers need to get rid of the idea of campaigns on any kind of dark social, but particularly in communities, right? You don't do campaigns when you're hanging out with your friends and family, right? You don't have a campaign to hang out with your friends. You just act like a normal human being. When it comes to dark social channels, again, especially with communities, it depends on whether we're talking about a community you own or not. If you don't own the community, if you're just popping into a community, you have to behave like an anthropologist, right? So your first jobs are to sit down, shut up, and observe. Learn who's who, learn who the leaders are, learn who the more talkative people are, learn the different layouts, the sort of the conversational dynamics, learn who people don't like. Because if you don't do that, you will just make a complete ass of yourself. You are participating in private social media conversations as a human, whether or not you work for a brand or a company or an agency, whatever. You are there as an individual human being, and you are speaking as an individual person. So a big part of marketers' troubles will be when they try to speak like a brand. You're not a brand. You are a human being. You're an individual person, and you have to interact with the rest of the community as an individual. That holds true even when it's your community that you own and operate. Right? You still have to be talking as Christopher Penn or Katie Robert or Kelly Mirabella, not Trust Insights or Agorapulse, because those are fictional constructs, and people don't resonate with that, right? With very few exceptions, like Steakum. So those would be the main differences. Is you have to. It is so trite, it is so cliche, but it is also so true. You have to behave like a human being. Right? You cannot behave like a marketer if you want any of your work in dark social to be successful. And in terms of the tools and linking them together, it depends on the platform. Many of these platforms have integrations with other systems. For example, one of my favorites is Joe Polizzi's community, The Tilt, which is a Discord community. I'll show a very quick example of it here if you want to bring up the screen share. So this is in Discord, and what's fascinating is that he has integrated this with their cryptocurrency. So people who hold more of their creator coin, which I just basically call it like a stock. You own stock in this thing. Get access to different parts of the community that people who don't hold stock in the community don't have access to. And there's all sorts of different integrations for Discord. Slack has very similar integrations. Telegram has integrations, you name it. Kelly and Jessica have talked about their integrations, Kelly, especially with all the different chatbots. You have to understand the marketing technology and what's possible. And once you do, these systems get very, very valuable.
Absolutely. Oh, and I love how you came prepared with the notes. You've got the screen screens to share and everything. It's really helpful to see what we're talking about when we talk about dark social. All right. So the next question is about measuring it. I mean, one of the tricky things about dark social is that you can't track it the same way as you can track something that's a little bit more public. But however, you can't go into something without a strategy and without goals and without an ability to know that how you're succeeding. So we're actually going to go right back to Chris, because he is, of course, Mr. Data Analytics. So tell us, Chris, what are some good success goals for dark social? First of all, what should we even be aiming for, and how do you measure that success?
Ultimately, as a marketer, your goal is to generate business, right? So whatever your goals are for your regular marketing, your dark social goals have to roll up to those as well. The math on it gets a little bit more tricky in some spots, but the number one thing that you can do for any marketing platform, any marketing program, channel, you name it, is at the point of intake, ask people, how did you hear about us? What made you come in today? And so on and so forth. Because that tells you where they're paying attention, right? If somebody is in, say, Kelly's Discord, and they fill out a form and says, "Oh, I heard about this from Kelly's Discord." Guess what? I can attribute that prospect, that lead, to that. Second, if you are operating your own community, many of these different services give you platform analytics, or if they don't, they give you the data and you can build your own. For example, in Slack, their analytics are okay, but they give you access to your raw data. And so you can, with just a little bit of elbow grease, produce activity reports like, hey, here's how much activity in the community there is on a monthly basis. You can see in 2022, we had a really busy year. So the community did a lot of growing. You can look at the language people use in public channels, not in private messages or DMs, but in public channels, to see, are people talking about things that our community is actually about, right? Google Analytics and social media and marketing analytics are the top 3 topics in our analytics for marketers community. So I think we're okay, right? If that was all like creator coins, I'm like, that's not what we do. And then the third thing is, if you are good at basic analytics, right? When you share stuff in a community, once you've gained people's trust, once you're accepted, once you're a true full-fledged member of the community, you can share stuff. As long as you're tagging it properly, you will see it in your regular analytics software. This is Google Analytics here. We're looking at some of the conversions for the company, and you can see the number 4 converting source at the top of the funnel, which is early touch points. And at the middle of the funnel is Slack. There's our Slack community. So I can show this to stakeholders. Well, I am one of the stakeholders, but if I was not, I could show this to stakeholders and say, look, Slack is the number 4 converting source for early to mid funnel customer acquisition. This is working. We need to keep doing more of it. And as long as you're good at tagging and tracking, you will see this in your analytics software. So those are the 3 suggestions. 1, ask people how they heard of you. 2, run analytics on your own platforms. And 3, use good tagging, and you'll see it in your regular analytics software. You're muted.
Yeah, people worry about this so much. They're like, oh, you can't track dark social. Yes, you can. You just have to think creatively, set things up, set yourself up for success. So much of analytics in general is setting yourself up for success. I've learned that from you, Chris. All right. So next up, we have Jessika. So Jessika, what are some good success goals for dark social, and how do you measure those?
Yeah, seriously, first of all, just everything Chris said, I could listen to him all day talk about this. He really is a data genius. But I like what he said, too, really thinking first, it's not campaigns. We can't continue to think campaigns, because as it relates to dark social, it is going to be more segmented and come back. So we do have to look at things first by collecting them like a CRM, measuring and looking at sentiment like he was talking about as well. And the result is going to be based upon, yes, new business, but also the reduced loss, so less churn, right? We're not going to continue to lose as much business, hopefully, if we're doing this right. We need to measure and look at just loyalty overall, longevity of people staying with our brands, and word of mouth turning to world of mouth referrals and growing in. So hopefully our ad dollars may start to go down if we're doing this right, and we can measure the growth of organic sentiment and traffic coming to our site. We can also look at, the growth of engagement. So if we are having, you know, these channels that are set up, are people engaged? Are they participating? Are they inviting friends? You know, is it a craveable channel that people want to keep coming back to and getting more of? But all of these things have to be put into place first to have like a CRM to measure, to kind of progressively profile our community and our customers, to learn to get to know them more. Because at the end of the day, we need to see, can we personalize our experiences smarter, faster, and really kind of create a more intimate experience for our customers to have an overall better experience with us and with our brands, and look at the longevity of the relationships with us, not just growing quickly with business that's going to be kind of, you know, the churn and burn. So I would say, you know, understand it's not a campaign. Set up some goals, not only for new business, but reduce churn, reduced spend on what you need to spend in order to acquire a customer, hopefully. And then looking at some of the new tools that are out there, like, you know, G4 or GA4, the new Google Analytics that you can set up and measure more engagement points versus just goals. And look at tools like, you know, Agora Pulse, that is helping you track your ROI and the conversations that are coming into your inbox and the conversations that you're getting invited to overall. And also look at your employee longevity as well, because that's going to speak a lot to, you know, the sentiment of the business and how many people are talking about you and wanting to stay loyal with you.
That's a really good point. It also speaks volumes if they're not talking about you and staying loyal to you.
Yep.
That's absolutely so key. All right, Kelly, it's interesting because you are in one of the more measurable elements of dark social in terms of chatbots. It is a lot easier to measure, but let's talk about what some good success goals are for dark social, especially chatbots, and how you measure that.
Right. So on a macro level, not so much inclusive of chatbots. For the dark social that we really don't control, I think you really need to be looking at brand lift in general. And that's a hard measurement, right? But let's just put it this way. If all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my gosh, I hear about you everywhere, that's a brand lift you want to keep rolling with. And then if you stop doing all those things and then all of a sudden it's crickets, your brand lift has gone down. But on a micro level, in terms of chat marketing, I don't like to have a blanketed goal. We really work with each client to think about what are your specific goals. For instance, I'm working with a restaurant group right now, and some of the goals that we would have for a restaurant group are build the email list, increase the amount of people who are going to come back. So we want to have, you know, maybe a loyalty club sign up, or a QR code that they can come into the messaging platform, and we can track when they come in and check in to the restaurant or to the bar, wherever they're at. So we can very easily track those data points, and we can place them in the real world through QR codes and NFCs. And we can track the actions that people are taking inside the chatbot. So if they're clicking things, if they're going to a URL, we always want to use custom UTM URLs or trackable URLs where we can get that data off of those URLs and track them as well. And then it comes down to those specific goals. So do you want more sales for your e-commerce site? Well, we can set that up to track. Do you want more email subscriptions? Well, we can set that up to track. You know, a lot of these things are very trackable if we can own the platform. But overall, we should be looking at not only those more micro things that we can control, but also be looking at the big picture of how is this helping my business. And a lot of it is a feel, and a lot of it is just based off of, you know, we see the shift. And that's really hard for the managers, the CEOs to do. I mean, like I said, I worked in this for a long time, and even with social media forever, people are like, well, we can't track that. That's BS, by the way. You could track pretty much anything in a non-dark social atmosphere. But I think of it like old school, right? So back in the day, people do billboards. I guess they still do them, but you know, you'd have like the benches with ads, and people would put, when I started in marketing, we did full page Sunday Sunday paper ads, full color. It was very expensive. And there was not a lot of tracking. The only thing the paper could say is, well, like, this is how many people are in circulation that may read your ad. Or maybe if we're lucky, we could track the phone number. Most people didn't. Or we could put in a QR code and hope that it gets printed so it's not blurry. But back then, nobody knew what a QR code was. So it was a lot harder to use those traditional marketing things and track. Whereas now we have all the tools available to us. So we should be utilizing all those tools to meet our individual clients' goals or our individual business goals. But then also we should be looking at, is this do we see an uplift in the amount of traffic that we're getting to our website? And as Chris was saying, you can see where people are coming from, even if it's from a dark social source. Can we see the amount of people that are coming into our door? I do have to, since I'm on stage, it was a while ago that Chris said it, but the intake question is absolutely bang on. I have a Facebook group where I ask people, where did you find me? And I swear, lots and lots of a large portion of people come from this one podcast I did with Bella Vasta. And I've spoken on some big stages, y'all, but they all came because of this one podcast. And it's just, or my YouTube channel. I get a lot of people from my YouTube channel, but it's really nice to know where that's coming from. So the simple ask, hey, where'd you find us? Or even if you have a brick and mortar, where'd you hear about us? It's those sort of things that measures that kind of brand lift as well. And that's all valuable information that we have to take into consideration.
And I love your point about how it really does have to be not just a measurement of what's happening in the dark social, but how is that impacting your business? That is so key. We get so blinded by these metrics on social or even on dark social that we forget that the point of the whole thing is to move the needle on our business. All right, Azad, you are up next. So what are some good success goals and how the heck do you measure them if the social is dark social?
Yeah, the best part about answering this question last is everyone has kind of hit all the points that I wanted to make. So I'll just kind of double down on a few of them. I think the most important thing to remember is depending on your brand or your client, goals are different for everyone, right? So what are your ultimate business goals? And then tie them into your dark social goals. So is it lead gen? Is it product information and knowledge about a product coming out? If those are your goals, as a business as a whole, tie them into your dark social strategy. And then some, I think, general ones that you just want to pay attention to when you're focusing on dark social is engagement. If you're building a community, you want that community to be autonomous and kind of building and communicating on their own. So is there proactive engagement there? If you're running paid to drive conversation through Facebook Messenger, is that working? Measure those data points there. So those are the ones that I wanted to kind of harp on, but I think everyone else kind of hit all of the big ones already.
I mean, that's the thing about having smarties at the party, And I love that everyone is loving learning from each other. There's a lot happening in actually the dark social channel of the chat here in StreamYard. I love it. All right, so we're going to wrap up with two kind of mic drop questions. These are going to be sort of speed rounds. So the first one is, what do you think is next for dark social? Jess, you're up.
All right. Yeah, I'm loving the side private chat conversation happening here, talking about just dark social in general. And what's next for it is going to continue getting more dark. There's going to be more channels that are popping up and continuing to grow. So you have to be at your core foundation solid. I think VR and AR are going to continue to grow. I think it's going to be more and more co-creation with our customers and the things, the relationships that we can't buy. We can't buy community. We cannot buy, recommendations. We can't buy the things that are sustainable and growing for our brands in real, and if it's not working in real life, it's not going to work in your marketing. So I think we need to focus on richer, deeper experiences. And I think we're going to start seeing this evolve into more immersive experiences and more immersive opportunities for our brands to co-create, whether it's, getting into a commerce with our clients and rewarding via some digital currency, but really a lot of more immersive experiences with VR and AR I see growing.
Immersive is the name of the game. All right, next up is Chris. So Chris, what do you think is next for dark social?
The fact that over 100,000 new Discord servers were set up last month, and about 90,000 Telegram servers, brand new, means that the appetite is there among our audiences to be in places where marketers can't reach. So we have to get used to the idea that people don't want to hear from marketers. We have to learn how to behave like regular human beings. And as public social media continues to go through conniptions, right? Billionaires buying networks and doing all sorts of crazy things. Dark social is the place people will go. In every platform that I'm in, every server, every community that I'm in, I have seen an influx of people coming in from public social networks saying, "Oh yeah, once this thing happened over here, we decided we're going to come over here instead." And I think that trend is not slowing down.
I love what you pointed out about social media having conniptions. It's an interesting place to be right now for sure. All right, next up we've got Kelly. So Kelly, what do you think is next for dark social?
I think Chris is spot on. I think that we need to reevaluate what marketing is. It's gotten a bit toxic and they just don't trust anything anymore. I mean, I'm seeing a burnout of consumer, not only for brands, but also for the platforms themselves like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, always in the conversation about, oh, I can't wait to leave. Where is everyone going? And so I do think that the big wave is going to be into these private communities. And I couldn't agree with Chris more. We have to get back to being human, get back to the basics of bringing value. And as Jessika teaches, focus on the relationship with people. So no matter what tool you're using, whether it's chatbots, SMS, social, or you're already in the dedicated Discord channels or wherever you're at, you need to come as a human that's bringing value. And if you can't figure out how to do that, hire someone who can.
Oh my goodness. People do forget how to be human. They forget that that's the power of this whole thing. So thank you for that important note on that. All right, Azad, so what do you think is next for dark social?
Surprise, surprise. I think it's going to be text message marketing. At Attentive, we sent over 1.6 billion text messages during Cyber Week. So from, Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday. And for the brands that we work with, we generated over $1.1 billion in revenue. There's a lot of money being made in SMS marketing, more one-to-one marketing on these channels that you kind of own. As we see with Twitter, when you build on something that you don't own, it can get taken away from you in the blink of an eye. So I think brands and the smarter brands will be building on own channels like SMS and private communities.
Yes, and that direct channel, because the fact is the platforms aren't going to yank someone's phone number from you. Hopefully you've got that in a database somewhere and they gave it to you. So no one can take it away except the people themselves. All right, so we are going to wrap this up with kind of a mic drop here. We're going to do just a quick final round of what are your top 3 tips for just quick and dirty top 3 tips for an effective dark social strategy. And also tell the good folks at home where they can find you. All right, starting with Kelly, top 3 tips and where people can find you.
All right, number 1, be a good human. That's the premise of everything, right? Number 2, move all your audiences, if possible, to owned platforms. And number 3, always be learning and be ready to pivot. And I think number 3 is the most important, because even now I'm seeing people who are skeptical of, chat marketing, which has been around forever. And even, things like AI and stuff that are raising a lot of questions and concerns, or allowing Alexa to have, be on your phone because of voice, controls or whatever. And the thing is like the future is moving faster than you think. And if you are already putting on the brakes, you're going to fall behind. And as a marketer, that's a no-go. That is a deal killer. That is a career killer. So always be learning, always be open to new things. You don't have to dive into them, but certainly, be skeptical of when people are like, oh, that's not right, especially if those people don't really know what they're talking about. So, always learning, always educating yourself, and be ready for the pivot. And if you're a consumer, then you could be more skeptical. Absolutely. But just know that the future is flying. It's flying at your face.
It's like snow or stars in the Millennium Falcon. All right. And where can people find you, Kelly?
I am everywhere at Stellar 24/7. That's STELLAR 247, including the .com.
Fantastic. All right. Next up, Azad, your top 3 mic drop tips and where people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. My first tip is to build where your audience is. So just do some social listening, understand where your audience is, whether they're in Discord, whether they're on LinkedIn groups, understand where they are and start building there. Number two is provide value on these channels. You're not only selling your product; you need to provide value to the people in these communities or communicating to you via one-to-one messaging. And then the most important one, I think, is be respectful of your audience. Kelly spoke about it a lot earlier. Stop bombarding people with sales pitches and product recommendations, and just be respectful that you have this one-to-one line of communication with them, and treat them like humans. Where people can find me, I am at Yakatally on all social media platforms. Follow me on Twitter while we're still there, and I'll tell you where to follow me afterwards.
While we're still there. All right. All right. Next up, Jessika Phillips. So, what are your top 3 tips and where can people find you?
Top 3 tips are to focus on the culture first. Make sure you have your foundation right, the culture of who you are, who you want to be part of your community, and what you have to say, right? What you want people to have conviction and clarity about. Second tip is provide craveability. So a place where people can come and want to get more of. So that goes back to the value, that goes back to, what you have to say and why people are going to want to be part of it and invite others to be part of that as well. And then the last tip is really about community. What others have said, community is about listening, being human, showing up with more personality, and caring, truly, truly caring about what others are saying. So I say get a sense of what people are feeling, always checking in with them. And you don't always have to just look at data points. You can actually ask real people what they're thinking and what they want more of and how you can help them to get a clearer sense of how you can show up and build a better community. So culture, craveability, and community. Focus on those, and you will continue to grow. I do have, some tips I can share too on a workbook that I can provide for free. So you can find me at Jessika Phillips, Jessika Phillips, PHILLIPS.com, and connect with me on the social media channel of your choice there, and probably get in some dark social channels on our own, and I can give you a free workbook on how to outcare the competition.
Very nice. All right. Thanks, Jess. And then we have Chris Penn. All right, Chris, top 3 tips and where people can find you.
Number 1, start your study of dark social communities by investigating like an anthropologist. Look at how other successful communities run. Number 2, build your own community after you understand how dark social communities work, because if you try and build it without knowing what you're doing, it's not going to go well. And number 3, you measure your efforts with good tracking, tagging, governance. Everything can be measured if you try. Now, whether it's worth measuring, that's a different conversation. You can find me at trustinsights.ai, and then go from there. But that's the best place to find me.
You people are all fantastic. Thank you so much, you guys. This was serious mic drop moments here. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Thank you to all of you who joined us for this conversation in the Social Media Pulse community. Please do get in those comments at socialmediapulse.community and let us know what your experiences of dark social have been, what your questions are, and of course, to find out more about our amazing panelists. Thanks so much. Bye.